right. Good morning.
Morning. It's one of those crisp. Pull back in the driveway this morning. I left the house. It was dark. Came back. It was light. Pulled in the driveway. It's crisp, and you can see the leaves falling off the trees. It is one of those beautiful, crisp fall mornings, at least here in Overland Park, Kansas, November 6th, the year 2025. Welcome, everybody. You're listening to Crushing Iron Podcast. This is episode 888.
A lot of eights, and I don't know if I've ever done what you did this morning: drive away in the dark and come back when it was light to the house.
Well, I mean,
Maybe
you could also time it, to where, things are, you're leaving just as like the sun's barely coming up, run down to the quick trip and come back and it's light outside. It's only a 20-minute trip.
Yeah, that's true. 888. Got a good eights in the world, we figured out.
Yeah, dude. We did. We rolled through that one pretty quickly with Kobe Bryant, Cal Ripken, and Ovechkin. That's a solid number. That's a solid set of eights right there. I mean, hey, 3 8s for 888. Take those, Cal Ripken, Ovi, and Kobe.
Yeah, man. It's I think you mentioned Cal Ripken as the Iron Man, and of course he broke Lou Gehrig's record, who was the original.
Mm-hmm.
But boy, there's a lot in there, and I think it really does kind of fit to what we're going to talk about today, because I'm sure that he spent some time in zone zero to get to that. I mean, that to me is the ultimate record. There's nobody going to touch that.
Oh, dude, there's no way. I mean, no, you're not going to, now they're doing like all kinds of, you got pitch counts and, managing minutes, and everybody's being so careful. I'm like, and that's why you hear Jordan like going off his rails every other 5 days about managing minutes.
I haven't heard from Jordan in like 30 years, and now he's just all in on.
It's all in on the minutes, man.
management.
It's like, God, these guys are just complete pansies. Like, they don't even know how to do things.
So he's like,
I stayed up all night long after every game, gambling my life away, drinking and smoking cigars, and never missed a game.
Yeah, I feel like he's kind of manipulating for a commissioner or something. I mean,
he might be, dude.
He jumped on the idea, the irony, right, of him as a gambler. I don't know. I mean, the dude, Cal Ripken, 2,632 games in a row without missing a game. I mean, I don't know. I can't see it.
It's interesting, right? Like, you just think about how they were basing everything off nothing. Like, they didn't, like, if you think about how almost like, prehistoric their training was back then, which again is like why I always tend to go back to when athletes talk about data and equipment and things you can do. Is like, there's definitely some advantage to some of those things, but if you look at some of the performances back then, and like they're wearing vests when they play ball that have all these kind of things associated with them, and they're monitoring minutes, they're tracking their HRV, their resting heart rate, they got cold plunge, they got boots afterwards, they're getting massage, they got physio. Dude, people are getting hurt more and more now than ever.
Yeah, I know. In
all sports. I mean, you can't even like make it through a game. I mean, in the NBA, they don't even play defense anymore, so I'm not sure how anybody gets hurt. But yeah, back then they were just like, we'll just walk in the arena, do our stuff, maybe get our athletic trainer to throw some ace bandages around our ankles if we sprain our ankle, and then we're gonna go drink all night, gamble, smoke cigars, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. It's just like it is. It's kind of wild. Like I think we talk a lot about how soft we've all gotten, I think, in a lot of ways, just by how easy life has become. Hell, you can get groceries delivered, food delivered. You don't have to leave your house for anything. You can work from home, get groceries delivered. I mean, it's kind of the level of convenience is at like it's frightening. And again, you wonder how we got here. But yeah, it's a solid number, and like we talked about last week, when we'll use this as the topic of the day, I kind of did a little bit of an impromptu teaser on Zone Zero. But I think we've talked about this a lot, in terms of, just movement, right? And it's something you've been big on for a lot of times. But it's just like Zone Zero is like it's a very accessible way to increase your daily movement, without that need to feel like you're doing like a formal workout or that you need special equipment. And I was listening to, and this kind of like got spurred on. I was on vacation and listening to a podcast. I was walking one morning, and it was this legendary Ultraman athlete. And Ultraman is like, the double distance of an Ironman. So like these guys are endurance like junkies. Like they not only do the distance, they do it twice, and they do it over 3 days, and it's like an insane event. He's like arguably the best ever. And it was an interview with him, and he was talking about how he used to go hard all the time, and everything had to be quantified, everything had to be monitored, and he was working himself to death. And then he hired this coach, and he was like, listen, he's like, we got to accumulate, some good stuff, but then is like, I just want you to try and do, spend 4 to 5 to 6 hours a week in zone zero. He's like, what do you mean zone zero? He's like, he's like, I need a heart rate monitor, I need a pre-built workout, I need to like have some intensity zones, I need to know like my max heart rate. He's like, no, you don't. He's like, you just need to move your body. And I mean, I know it sounds ridiculous, and I'm not saying this is like the key to, unlocking your high performance time. But kind of like I said at the end of the podcast on Tuesday, is there is a significant amount of us, right, myself included, that, I mean, I'll just use myself. I got up this morning, had some coffee, went and swam. And then since I got home from that at 7, and outside of coming upstairs to this podcast, I've been sitting for 3 hours straight. In front of my laptop, doing emails, doing training peaks, just sitting. And I mean, this is common, right? You and I deal with this all the time with athletes, and usually it comes up when they have like a hip niggle, or like there's something's like, you can tell they've been driving a lot, or people that are constantly, going on like, sales trips, and they travel. You work out and then you sit. And I think if you look at the net positive, right? Again, like we're looking at, because we talk a lot about recovery and things. And again, I'm not saying you need to replace like some of your sessions with this, but I'm talking about accumulating all that extra time you use sitting on your ass doing nothing, scrolling through Facebook, scrolling through Twitter talk, whatever it is you want to do, or just being lazy. Go for a walk, right? Take your dog out. Go for an easy, spin around the neighborhood on a bike that doesn't matter, right? Like don't be heading on the neighborhood doing an easy spin with your TT helmet on your tri bike. Like just don't do that. You give as triathletes a bad name. We've already got one, or doing yoga or meditation or something that creates movement that isn't something that you can measure with intensity, but you can just measure with movement. If you want to throw on a weight vest, do that. You want to hop on the treadmill and do a little bit of a hike, do that, right? It might not feel like zone zero for a lot of those like treadmill hikes with a weighted vest, but still hop on the elliptical, hop on the rower. Like, yes, you can consider that in a zone, but not everything we do has to be measured, quantified, and considered training. I think if you're looking to add volume, before you add volume to your training or intensity of your training, first things first, like especially in these months, like look to add in just simple exercise and movement in zone zero. And it's just it's so, walking in general is so underrated. I mean, I think there was a study, I think we even alluded to it like last year, that how much healthier and just a person can be that averages 30 minutes of walking 4 days a week. Think about that for a minute. 2.5 hours a week you spend just briskly walking. What it does. I mean, there's countless studies about how, walking, like a brisk walk after you eat, helps monitor and regulate blood sugar. We're just talking about walking. But what do most of us do? You eat, and then what? You just sit on your ass for at least an hour, right? And sometimes it's because what you ate probably doesn't make you feel like going for a walk. But I think, again, like we get so caught up in the things that have to be measurable, things that we have to do to quantify X, Y, and Z, and has to be part of training, or we have to include it as part of training, or it didn't count. But accumulating these extra hours, I mean, again, like there's why it's also why there's success story after success story from people who go from, largely sedentary to just creating like, a goal for a certain number of steps to do each day. They're just walking. But I guarantee you, I kind of touched on this briefly before we went live, is, you take, if I'm an athlete, I'm doing an Ironman, I'm looking at being on my feet, and I'm looking at creating an aerobic body, an aerobic system, and a strong body. If you had to ask me, like, hey, would you take this athlete that could do a 90-minute hard bike ride every Tuesday, or one that can only do like a 50 to 65 minute hard bike ride, but they could sneak in, 2 more hours or 2.5 hours of walking or hiking or movement, whatever it is throughout the day. Give me that person. It's still time on your feet. You're still getting a benefit. Is it going to be something you can measure? No. But honestly, like go out there and try to walk fast. It's hard. It is not easy to try to walk fast or even try to walk fast. I could do it with Waffle sometimes. And he's like, what the hell are you doing? We're supposed to be like stopping every 5 feet to sniff a tree and you're over here brisk walking and dragging me. But it's just, again, like movement. And I think the biggest thing to me, like just like diets, is it's not so much about what you're eating. It's about what you're not eating. And I think this is the same way. It's not so much about the movement that you do. It's that you're not sitting. And so however you want to like frame that or call that, I think, especially this time of year, right, where it's cold, it's dark, everybody kind of retreats inside. You're watching football and basketball and hockey, whatever else, and your favorite like fall, winter shows on TV, or binging Netflix, drinking extra beers, having more cheese curds. Get out and move a little bit. And again, it's not so much about what you're doing; it's what you're going to no longer be doing.
Yeah, man. Well, I don't need any convincing that this is a good topic. I feel like I've taken a lot of shit over the years for sort of my approach on this. I mean, not from you, just generally. I'm just saying, I've always just sort of worked this in. I haven't really called it anything, but it's kind of like just supplemental movements that just have kind of always been a part of my game. Like I'm watching, hoops on TV or something, and I'll drop down and just do 10, 15 push-ups on commercials, or stretching or loosening up or whatever. And I mean, over the last year, you brought up walking. I mean, that to me has been a baseline for what I've been doing. And it's like, there was a while there last year where I got in that habit of, it wasn't always, if it's dark or whatever, I ate a little later, I'd just get on the treadmill, walk it out for 30 minutes for exactly the reason you said. And it's sort of like sometimes, that kind of thing becomes a watch event, and other times it just doesn't. And it kind of irritated me because at times I would look for my watch, I want to start like stretching time, or whatever. But I just you create sort of a bucket of different things that you want to do, and you just start doing them throughout the day. And because there is always time. I mean, we have so much more time, I think, than we think. When you do sit around and, you play on your phone, and it's just crazy how time passes when you do that. I did an interview with one of my athletes, and he was a gamer, and he's like, sometimes I just sit down and then it's like 3 hours later. It's like, that's TV. That's, phone talk, it's the whole 9 yards. And sometimes you're right, man. It is like, kind of what you're not doing, and you said what you're not eating. And it's so easy to reach into that pantry and grab a snack, and I've just always tried. I'm not great at it, but at least I try to grab a little water first, and it's like, just sit on that for a minute, see if you're thirsty or you're hungry,
Or think about what you would like. The net positive it would be was every time you got up to go get a snack, instead of getting that snack, you went for a 15-minute walk.
Yeah.
Sitting, probably not snacking on what you want to snack on, moving. And you're probably like, oh man, this actually feels pretty good. And you come back in and you're like, if you still are hungry, chances are you're probably going to probably make a better snack choice. Like instead of grabbing maybe a bag of, Pringles or pretzels, you're like, maybe I'll grab a banana or an apple or some, whatever. Like, it's just, again, like it's those small things that, again, I think we've gotten, and you've always been about this extra movement. And that's, I think, while I like to use like Hayden's example a lot, but like this is where it's gotten so lost with kids. Is like they don't have nearly enough free time and free play, and to me that's like zone zero. It's not measured. They're not at their special practice. They're not getting a private lesson. They're not with their travel team. That's training. But they go out and like exercise. Like they are lit. Like they go out and do, like they go hard, they go easy. It's just they're having fun. They're not measuring any. Like Hayden was supposed to be home at 5:30 on Monday or Tuesday. He had like, it was beautiful here. It was like 65 degrees. He didn't have hockey and he got home from school. I was like, all right, knock out your homework. And then as soon as you're done, just, or no, it was Sunday. He didn't have anything. And it was, I think 2 o'clock. And he was like, I want to go play. It's beautiful outside. And I was like, all right, just be in before the sun comes down. So I ran out. It's like 5:30, unfortunately. So it was like 3.5 hours. I was like, just go bike and go do stuff. He comes back in, like I go out there because he was a little bit late, and I came out to peek in the garage. He was like completely out of breath. I was like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, I was a little bit late. I got a head start, so I just hammered it home. And I was like, first of all, I'm like, that's my boy. But like, that's not training. But does it benefit him to move, right? Like, again, I'm using the kids as an example and then translate to us as adults, like him going out and riding around the neighborhood and messing around with friends. Cause he'll ride his bike to school with it, up to the playground. They'll play football, they'll play baseball, they'll play games, they'll play tag. They'll just fuck around, right? With no agenda, no coach, no parent. They get on bikes, they chase, they ride around the neighborhood. They're legit active for like 3.5 hours. Versus maybe a kid who doesn't do that kind of stuff and they just sit on their rear end watching TV, or their parent is like, you got to save your energy for practice tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? You can't do that. You've got practice tomorrow. Guarantee you the kid that goes out and does this, like, again, using like zone zero as an analogy, that kid, better conditioning, better endurance, happier. Like this is what, again, like I think what we're missing both with kids these days, right? In the early specialization and in the professionalism of youth sports, but also for us as adults, right? It's like not everything has to be this. Like if you're going on, and I did this the first time and then I kind of shamed myself for it, but like the first time Hayden was like, hey, let's ride up to the grocery store and get donuts. I was like, all right. And I was like, let me find my bike computer. And I was like, what the fuck did you just say?
Yeah, right.
Why do you need your bike computer? I was like, just get on your freaking road bike or ride with your son 2.5 miles up to the store, let him get donuts, have a cup of coffee, hang out and ride home. Because if I hadn't have done that, you know what I've been doing?
Still
sitting on the couch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sitting on the couch, right? Sitting on the couch watching College Game Day, which, again, nothing wrong with that. I mean, I'm a huge fan of watching College Game Day, but I would have been doing nothing.
Yeah.
And nothing usually breeds more nothing, right? Just like we talked about on the podcast Tuesday about how movement and habits and behavior create those continuous behavior, but being sedentary, not moving, being still, sitting, that makes you want to do it more. And you've always said that, right? And we've always talked about how just doing the warm up usually gets you 95% of the way. But these are just those habits, right, of creating. And I know they sound small and insignificant to maybe somebody who's already putting in 12, 15, 16 hours a week. And like, that's not going to do anything for me. But like one of the first coaches I ever had forever ago, when I was training for Ironman Arizona, I saw in like one of the first weeks he gave me a weighted hike on a Saturday. And I was like, what the fuck is this? I was
Genius.
like, aren't I supposed to be doing like specific like training? He was like, no, just go head out to, and I was living in Nashville.
Who was that, Dan Lorang? You had a genius back then?
It wasn't Dan. I mean, but he does the same thing. He's like, put a bunch of books in a backpack and go hike for 2 hours. And I was like, this is such a joke. I was like, I should be like high performance training here. I'm trying to go like sub 11. And what is this? After 70 minutes, my ass hurt so bad. I was like, I'm done. I was like, I am done. 'Cause I went up to Percy Warner and was climbing. I was like, no. He's like, yeah, dude, it's all about like, again, using muscles you're not normally using anyway, like hiking, doing things like that. Like this is what, and again, like if you're on the high performance side, like again, you might not see a ton of value in it. You can still get something from it. But especially for people who tend to go in and out of training or who are struggling like to just get started, right? Finding a way to, move more. And then again, like you don't have to start moving and exercising to start training. You just have to start moving and exercising, right? Like you don't have to be like, I'm not ready to train. I'm not ready to do this. You just need to start doing something. And that's going to start the momentum, right? That's going to start creating that, that avalanche, that snowball effect, to where it's going to, become, maybe I want to do more. And then you feel better, right? Again, everybody feels better after a walk, right? Whether it's physically, whether it's mentally. Like I woke up in a shit mood yesterday morning, and I was supposed to go for a run. I was still a little bit sore. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go for a walk. I always feel better after I take waffles for a walk. It's dark outside. I sometimes listen to music, sometimes not. I came back, better mood, clearer mind, felt better, refreshed. If I hadn't, I would have been sitting on the couch, having probably too much coffee, and then probably not being the coach I needed to be in, via email or text message. And it's just, again, like there's all these positives that I think we get lost in. If you can't measure it, you can't compare it, it can't be put into data, and I can't, feel like it's part of a training, science, then it's not worth it. And that's just false.
There's you mentioned that about the kid who had to save it for practice, or the parent, to save it, you need your energy for practice tomorrow. And I sometimes think about, like, coaches or parents or whatever, and really a lot of times that just becomes projection of how they feel, and how you don't really know exactly how somebody's going to feel. And I like to give my athletes the freedom to kind of take it and seize the moment at sometimes. And I just think about stuff like, I saw something the other day about a guy, I think he was an NBA guy. He missed a game winner or something, and then how you see, this, you're not going to believe, but here's what he was doing after the game. So they showed him out there taking the exact same shot like 100 times in a row, after everybody left the arena. We've all seen that shit. He did this, and I'm like, your first instinct is to be like, yeah, that's my man. He's working at it. And then I'm starting to think, it's like, that dude's just like crystallizing that shot in his head, and the fact that he missed it. It's almost like sometimes you just got to kind of walk away and not think about it. We're talking about, we started with Cal Ripken, and I'm like, 2,632 games. That's like 16 straight seasons without missing a game. You think, like, and my analogy with that is, I'm sure, like, 90% of those games he had niggles, or something wrong. And I'm sure he just didn't, like, obsess about it the whole time. He was probably just moving on and moving forward. And it is like you're saying, you just kind of got to do something, maybe even different, to get your mind out of that, that hole. And it's like, to me, it's like, if you, want to get faster, and you get on the bike every day and do intervals to try and get faster, and you just burn out, and then you get hurt, or whatever the case may be. It's a weird dynamic, and I even struggle with this, like, this zone zero concept sometimes, and zone 1, zone 2. Like, I've kind of been in a bike groove lately, just getting on the trainer, and I've set myself up with, quote unquote recovery rides. And I can tell, like, some days I'm just like, I feel pretty good. And I end up pushing it. And the next day I'm just like, why did I do that? Because it was just a little too much. And those little too muches just kind of stack on top of each other, and don't give you the best chance to perform. Like we've always talked about, those high performance workouts, or the ones you want to do the next day. It's like you get ahead of yourself. And I just wonder sometimes if, like, obsession on things can be harmful in general. It's like I'm obsessed about never missing this shot again. So I'm going to go out after this game while everybody else is, sitting in cold tanks and just kind of getting their heads away from this. You play 82 games a year or whatever. You can't be like, how it shit gets in your head, It's like, I think about that a lot with, hitting streaks, or not hitting streaks, hitting slumps, and how, always hear, it's like, he was out early taking BP, extra BP, and then the slump just keeps going and going and going. And then it's just like, at some point when they get a broken bat single that just kind of opens something up for them, and they see it hit the grass, and then suddenly they can hit again, but like, how often do you need to, like, hit? I mean, or take that shot. I mean, I get that, repetition, it wins, but, like, when it's obsessed repetition, I don't know sometimes. I think sometimes you just need to move your body in a different way and get your, because, like, nobody's ever going to be perfect. And the more you obsess about perfection, I think sometimes that can really tighten you up and create the opposite result.
Dude, I love that because I mean, I think what we oftentimes get lost in, and is like that bridge between, in talking about movement and obsession is, what's, sedentary and then what's sustainable. And people don't pick something sustainable. They pick something, like you said, that it's like obsessive and too much. And you're like, well, this is like, no wonder it's, you feel like a failure because you're obsessed about it. And then when it doesn't work, then you get more obsessed about it. And then like you rob the fun, then you're like, why am I doing this? And the thing is like, it doesn't even have to be something significant, right? In terms of just moving, because this is overall health, right? Overall health we're talking about here that does benefit everything, but there's a lot of positives. I think that, again, like we haven't even touched on yet. For some people, it's just as simple as, especially if you're just, again, like, 'cause there's a lot of people, I know we talk a lot on this podcast, and a lot of it's based on, endurance sports and crazy ultra feats that, people can't wrap their brain around, or people trying to, qualify for X, Y, and Z, or, sprint distance, like these things. But a lot of people I'm sure listening are probably been there, but are not there right now and are having a hard time like wrapping their brain on getting back because it seems so much. And like the first step is the hardest. Just park your car farther away. I always used to like laugh when you see people like circling the parking lot like 19 times trying to find the closest spot as they pull up to the gym. And I'm like, what are you doing? You're coming here to work out. You're looking for the shortest route from A to B. Go park at the farthest spot possible. Get some extra steps in because that makes you want to do it more. But then like the biggest thing to me though too is like, and I know we talked with some is just getting up and taking a walk like post meal. Because, the majority of people, I'd say like 95% of people probably have, a decent amount of carbohydrates and sugar in a lot of their meals, and you create like this spike. Well, if you're just sitting, it's going to spike, and then it's going to just crash. But if you get up and move and you start that like muscle contraction, that starts to use some of that immediate glucose. You don't have that huge crash. I think a lot of athletes do this, and this is why they have so much trouble throughout the day, during the week, and also the weekend, is that you do these workouts and you take in, enormous amount of, carbohydrates and sugar, but then you go for your like post workout drink and it's just super carb and sugar heavy, and you down it and then you sit in front of your laptop, in front of your computer, in the car, driving to work, sitting in traffic. You just sit. Like the amount of and it's just, frankly, it's just not good for you, right? But if you like look at, like the different nationalities and like place where people are like really like have like the highest level, highest like longevity, they just move a ton, right? Like they're in like, villages and places. They're on their feet, they're moving, they're being active all day, pretty much every day. They don't have access to the latest biohacks or freezing this or injecting with peptides. They're in some like foreign village in India, on their feet all day long, doing something and working like Cal Ripken every single day, never missing a day. Very limited access to this, but they're just constantly moving, versus, people like, again, like you're all about the 1 hour you do, but then like the other 23 hours of the day, maybe you're not eating right. Maybe you're not feeling right. Maybe you're cutting down on sleep. Again, it's about feeling good and that creating that high level of momentum, because a high level of momentum, right? And the bigger your snowball, the harder it is to stop. Right? You have a bad day, you have a bad session, you do train, you're adding time to this. You have a bad day, you're not going to just like you're still going to feel so good and have such strong momentum. It's not all going to come to a screeching halt. Right? That's why it's so important to keep this momentum you've had from like the end of the season doing something, because when you start to do nothing, that becomes your momentum, right? Your momentum is now brakes. Your momentum is not on the gas pedal. And yeah, it's okay to coast for a bit. Nothing wrong with that, but you have to be doing, not have to be, but it's great for you to be doing something. I mean, you should love seeing people out for a walk. people out for a run, people walking with friends, that's a huge part of a lot of people's just culture. You have a meal, you go for a walk. Every night before sundown, you go for a walk. And they probably move a ton. And I just think we tend to shrink down so much of our time and cram, again, as Americans, we do this pretty frequently anyways. We just try to cram so much. We try to cram 36 hours into a 24-hour day. And then we skip stuff. We skip recovery. We skip meals. We skip hydrating. We skip sleep. We add stress. And you're like, we'd be a lot better off trying to cram in, 12 hours into a 24-hour day. Recover, less stress, better sleep, better sleep hygiene, better outlook on life, more positive, better mood, good training. I'm feeling good. I'm not trying to overdo it. I'm not trying to like reach for the next thing. Kind of like you said earlier about, you feeling the bike and you're like, why did I do that? Like, it feels so good. You're like, but remember how I got here, and I think everything is, and it's hard, right? Because everything we do right now, it has to be measured, has to be posted, has to be compared. You upload something on Strava that's like, this was your 356th best, effort on this route between Johnny Smith's mailbox and the cul-de-sac down on 45th.
Congrats.
Like, exactly, right? Here's a titanium rhinestone medal. Ching. And then you get like 19 likes. And you're like, what the fuck are we even doing here? Like, not everything has to be measured or applauded. We talked a little bit about before I went to the swim this morning. We kind of touched on it on Tuesday's podcast about the Navy Special Warfare program that works out of the gym here, and he's training these guys he's training them to be able to try to become Navy SEALs, not to become, but to try to become. And they're not allowed any phones. They don't measure anything on devices. I'm sitting there in the pool today, and I'm doing my workout, and they started at 6. I got in the pool at 6, and I'm looking out the window, as I'm in between my 50s, and I can see them, these big, huge windows. I can see them 9 across, laying on their back in the freezing cold on the concrete, fully clothed. They just done a workout. He put them in the cold plunge. He pulled them out, and he made them go lay on the concrete in their clothes. Mm-hmm. They can't take selfies. They can't take pictures. They don't have a Garmin on. They're just doing it to do it and to get better. And obviously they have a process they're trying to follow, and they're obviously listening to their instructor, and they're trying, they want to become something, but in order to become something, you have to try to become something that can then try to become something else. No rewards. They're not on Strava. They're not, they get nothing out of it, from an external standpoint. Everything that they get is internal, and they keep coming back, and they're doing it. And I just think that we've gotten so lost on the way to performance and on the way to health and on the way to happiness that everything has to be compared or measured. And therefore, if we can't, then we must not. Well, it's not going to count. Why should I do it? I came to the pool, but I forgot my watch. I guess I'll go home. Zwift crashed. I guess I shouldn't do my bike ride. My watch is dead. I guess I shouldn't run. My AirPods are dead. I guess I can't do this today. The credit that we have become obsessed with, that is external, that are just numbers on a screen, give you don't produce any value. They just produce numbers, right? Or likes, or they feed our external need for applause or affirmation. But the intrinsic value of what we do, right, not just from a health standpoint and what we're doing for our bodies and for our mind and for our heart, there is no quantifiable measure for that. I think if you asked anybody who's been in the sport for a long period of time, what was your best workout ever in the last 5? Oh, well, let me check. Let me go back and do that. No, what was your best? Doesn't have to be fast. What was your best, most fun? And a lot of times they'll reach back to the hardest or the most fun. Two things you cannot actually measure. right? How hard someone is working, because it's all relative, like the pain that they were in. Only they know what kind of pain scale they have. And then the value and the fun they got out of it. And it's okay to like, yeah, I did this on a run a couple weeks ago. Like I went out and I was on the greenway, and I went out, and this group of like 6 was taking up like the whole greenway, like doing this selfie. And of course, I got immediately annoyed. I was like, what the fuck are we doing right now? I was like, I kept going, and I stopped to look back, and I'm like, what? It must be like a bunch of deer. And look back, arguably one of like the most beautiful sunrises I've ever seen in my entire life. And I'm like one of those guys that never stops. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna stop for this and just kind of soak it in.
You made some new friends, huh?
I did not know. I didn't talk to them. Well, here's what I did, right? I did what any person that was quick to judge. I ran immediately around the corner so they couldn't see me stop, and then I stopped.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's like I knew how to play my cards, and stopped, and I was like, dude, that's what it's all about. Is like, and it didn't, like, I'm usually like, don't stop, just keep moving. But again, like, whatever it is, like, just the fun and what we do, it's just we've lost our way, I think, in a lot of ways of trying to measure those things too often. And if we can't measure it, then it's no longer worth it.
You mentioned the word quantifiable, and that just stuck with me because I have a thought I'm going through here. You mentioned when you're talking about like, why not park further away when you're at the gym and everything like that. It just takes me back to like, I just feel like we all don't like to be judged or criticized or, made feel stupid or something like that. I was just actually, when you were talking, I kind of drifted back to when I was like in grade school, and I was in the, they had like tiers of, you're smart or medium smart or kind of in the slow group. And I was in the medium group, and I got moved up to the smart, class or whatever. And I, I did something really dumb and just got like super embarrassed. And I just, I remember how I carried that. And, over time, I've really worked on, we all know people that beat to their own drum, right? And it's like, what is it? That is some weird shit that dude's doing or whatever. And I've been trying to really almost gravitate more toward that because, if you can do that, like people think we're crazy, right, for doing Ironman. I mean, everyone knows, most of our circle that's not in the sport will be like that. Why do you do that? That's crazy shit, right? And I felt that for many, many years. And then I was I got in this mindset of like, how am I going to make them think I'm even crazier? It's sort of like, how can I take this up a notch? And I think that is always about kind of going in and beating your own drum, because like, how do you quantify intelligence anymore? I mean, people, it's like everyone's so quick to call somebody dumb, but I mean, I just think people don't, it's just like nobody really knows shit. We're just trying to figure it out and what works best for us. And if you have conviction, I mean, what's that book, The Road Less Traveled? The road less traveled takes conviction, whatever that road you're on is. And I think ultimately that's one of the best things we can develop in this lifestyle, this sport, or whatever you want to call it, is sort of this, you find things, occasionally we'll go out and do like back when we started training and I was just new in the sport, and sometimes I would just say, nah, I'm not going. I would take a lot of hell for that, but it was, I just didn't feel it. It wasn't right into the program or whatever. And then I was like, maybe I'll do it tomorrow or later or something like that, because I just had to stay with what felt right to me. And I think that to me is an actualization point in the sport too, is that, we're doing crazy shit, and then, we all want to make it feel better, feel easier or more enjoyable as the longer you're in it. And I think it's just really a critical point is to really be strong with what works for you, and there's a million methods. What's going to be best for you might not be best for everyone else, or vice versa. So I think it's really important to kind of start to understand, especially after we've been in it a while, you kind of have your baseline principles of what's going to work for Ironman or 70.3. And then you go through that, and then you got to kind of start shuffling the deck a little bit and figuring out what's the best place for you. And I think a lot of times that zone 0 that we're talking about is something that we have a hard time accepting or, kind of putting out there, and you talk about like Strava all the time. I'm not even on that, but like, can you imagine somebody putting on a, zone 0 shit on there? It's just not going to get the response that, you want. But if you do, I just like the fact that, sometimes athletes will put, really just like unimpressive things on there. It's like, that's really what it kind of boils down to, is like, on the surface, that's not impressive, but I'm sitting there looking at it like, that was a smart move right there, and something that's going to get them through the weekend or whatever the case may be. And it's like those things don't have the gravitas, that a big workout does, but it's even more important just to be able to understand that in your own brain and your own body and just be comfortable with it, because that's really all that matters. We can sit here, for years it was always, about, for me, it was kind of about how can I impress somebody or do this or whatever. Now I'm just trying to be like pull back. It's almost like taking a step further inside and finding the right methodology or what's going to work and really embracing it, because it's something that's always sort of been in my gut, but to be really comfortable with it hasn't always been easy for me. It's like, I feel like this morning I woke up and I didn't feel like working out, but I knew I kind of felt good. I slept decent. And I'm like, all right, I feel good, but I don't feel it. I think it's going to come around and I'm going to be in a good spot, but like, I'm not going to force it. And sometimes you got to do it, I guess. But other times, listening to yourself and not skipping recovery, things like that, because it's like, it's so easy to do, it's like, I hate to keep referencing Michael Jordan, but I think about him a lot because, obviously he was great, but, and he worked his ass off. I'm sure like everything you hear about him is every practice, he was just all on, but then, he'd play a late game and the next day he'd golf 30, maybe have a bad game. And then he just, I need to go golf. He needed to clear his head and he'd golf 36 holes and then he'd come in and have a great game, but like talking about movement. I mean, the dude's out golfing for 36 holes before a big game. And to me, it's like, he's got the skill, he's got the talent. He just needs to get the head right and give the body a chance to kind of like get out of that high intensity zone. I think that's a way to look at it too, is it's like your body needs a chance to get out of that zone and you almost have to force that sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care what you call it. And I love when you touched on recovery right there, because that's what most people should consider this. It's active recovery. Mm-hmm. That actually has a aerobic benefit. Not on a high level, but it's still performing because you're moving blood, you're moving oxygen around your body. Like, go back to like run camp. We go out and we do these, a lot of people go up in their mileage. You're running on like insanely hilly terrain or putting in a lot of stuff, hard work, back-to-back runs. And we always have like, one day is like a hike or optional hikes. Everybody feels a little rough getting going. But then a lot of people will comment in like post-camp surveys that the hike was their favorite part. One, there's no workout attached. There's no metric. There's no expectation. It's just freedom. And you're usually doing it with friends, having a conversation, catching up, exploring, right? Sometimes finding things, that are sometimes questionable, out there in the woods in Tennessee. But then when they come back, everyone feels better. You got to, because here's the thing, is like you're doing a lot of running. It's on trails, it's on dirt, it's on, gravel, it's on roots and rocks. And, it's just hard terrain. And if you don't go for the hike, you're doing one thing. You're sitting on your ass, playing cards, watching a football game, talking with friends, eating a meal. But you stop, you get outside again, which I think that's something we haven't even touch on, right? Is the value of being outdoors. Is you get outside and you do that, and then you move and you kind of work through the blood's going and starting, help dissipate and flush out the waste, and you're getting oxygen in your muscles by moving more, and you're getting outside, you're having good conversation. You come back, everyone feels better. And to me, so if you don't want to call it zone 0, that's fine. But call it active recovery, right? However you want to frame it, don't care. But it's those little things, again, is just like these things aid in recovery. You know, like it's the same thing to me yesterday. I woke up, like I said, I was in a kind of a foul mood, woke up on the wrong side of the bed for some reason. Got up, my legs were still sore, and I went for a walk, came back, and they felt better. Not only was I in a better mood, but my legs also felt better, because instead of sitting on the couch, getting my laptop out, having a cup of coffee, I was moving my legs. Right? Everybody knows, like, you sit still for a long time, your legs are just stiff. You just feel like trash. I mean, great example. Like, I'll get up from this podcast and my legs will feel a little bit stiff and a little bit sore because I've been sitting here for an hour versus like getting up and walking around. So like, just think through like how to weave these things in. Again, if you can't measure them, hopefully you don't want to measure them. I feel the need to measure them, but just think of the value add. It's an accessory movement, exercise, zone zero, active recovery that is going to benefit you, both the person, but also you, the performing athlete, by aiding in recovery, regulating blood sugar, putting you in a good mood, keeping your momentum going, not being sedentary, bumping up your metabolism. Those are all value adds. They complement the work that you do. It doesn't all have to be work related. It can just be something that helps, right? The work that you do be better. And a lot of times people just think about how much more work can I do on top of the work that I'm doing, right? Instead of, if you're doing 10 hours of work, 14 hours is better. More work's better. Instead of how can I make the 10 hours of work I'm doing work better for me? And that's always been something that we've always talked about since the first year we did this podcast, was like that minimal effective dose. It's not how much can I take, hey, here's an aspirin, that's probably all you need. But if one aspirin's good enough, then I wonder what 20 will do. No, bad things happen. It's not the answer. It's, find out what's working and then try to complement those hours and the rest part, because then you're not forcing it, and then it's not too much. And again, then it's become something that you're obsessed about. There's a lot of ways to create more positive energy and positive flow with training and a positive outcome that isn't just swim, bike, run related.
Yeah, it's like, I know you've had a lot of athletes that have done this, and I kind of have in my own way, but you kind of get behind in the schedule and you're getting close to the race, whether 5 or 6, and I may have mentioned this last week, but I think it's an important point. It's sort of like, well, I'm just going to kind of do one before I do it. It's sort of like, no, let's just, I like what you said, what's going to, put you in a place to be able to have a better workout or whatever, have a better race. It's like not doing a race before the race is not going to put you there, So it's like we just have to, take advantage of what you can and do it the best you can and set it up for the next day as we get, you get closer to a race the last 4 or 5 weeks and maybe you're behind. You don't want to just try and, catch up tomorrow, And I just think that can hold true all through the year too. It's like, just think about tomorrow, man. Really, it's sort of like do the best you can for today to make tomorrow even better or whatever. And if you kind of keep that principle, to me, it helps me look forward to tomorrow too. As far as the workout goes, I don't want to be shelled when I'm done and thinking about tomorrow going, fuck, I always got to just be like sucking it up. I mean, you can do that and it works, but I mean, shit, even Goggins, like he never talks about it. It rarely talks about recovery, but he, like when he does, he's like real serious about it, but he doesn't like focus on it like when he's talking a lot. But we all have to like really be actively recovered and be in a good spot for what's coming. Or, it's like digging out of too many holes, it gets too difficult.
I mean, don't dig a hole, go for a walk. Right? It's like, I think, again, like if we can close it out, I think then this is something you've always been a huge proponent of is, I think one of the biggest benefits outside of the physical is just like to teach and encourage people to slow down. right? Like endurance athletes or triathletes, or even just like your modern day adult who's trying to fit it all in is almost always in a hurry. I got to fit it in. I don't have time to comment. I got to get it in. That's all I had time for today. You're bouncing from like boom, 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 boom. Like there is no rest, there is no recovery, there is no reflection, there is no being present, there is no slowing down. It's just full speed, get home, meal, bed, repeat. And you're like, I don't even know what I did today. Or is today still today, or was that even like yesterday? Because that's how busy your day was. Like sometimes that's like, and I'm guilty of it too. Like sometimes like at 4 or 5, I'm like, was that this morning or was that yesterday? You know, like you have those days and you're like, but that like that active recovery, that zone zero, like it really can teach you to slow down. And, you know, like that this type of movement is still good movement. It doesn't always have to be fast, and it doesn't always have to be hard. It doesn't always have to be high intensity. It doesn't always have to be measurable. And it sure also doesn't have to be always applauded.
Fact.
Yeah. That's all we got. You go to our website as usual. First off, we love you guys. We appreciate you. If you're looking for the best way probably to slow down and be present and get in some solid zone zero and other zone work, check out the C26 Adventure Camps. Mike's got those going on up in beautiful Wisconsin. Hopefully we can put a link to those in the show notes. Check those out. Again, great place, great opportunity to slow down, especially, which is ironic, right? You got it in January, which most people are thinking about revving things up, right? Going too fast out of the gate, only to come to a complete screeching halt, right? Like 2 weeks later. I think it's placed perfectly right there in January to, come out of the gate, being present, and have a good weekend. So we'll have, hopefully you can include those in the show notes. And then we've also got a swim and a strength camp here in Overland Park at the Hub for, again, 2 things. Well, it's really 3 things. People avoid what you're offering, right, with slowing down and kind of doing some things like the cold plunge and these adventure camps, because everyone wants to go fast all the time. They don't see the value in slowing down. And then people also avoid swimming and strength because it's too technical. They don't know what they're doing and they don't see any benefits. They just avoid it. And so we're both offering those kind of opportunities in January. So check those out. They'll be in the show notes. What did I miss? Anything?
No, I don't think so. I think, just go to the website and see what's going on.
Out. Yeah, check them all out. As always, we love you guys. We appreciate you. Go to that website, C26Triathlon.com. It is our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you need anything from Mike, he's there for you. Mike at C26Triathlon.com. Or if you need anything from me, Robbie at C26Triathlon.com.
All right, man. Go Vols. You guys got a game this weekend?
Fuck, I don't care.
Yeah.
If it's a big game, we'll start off quick, cause a pick 6 or something, and then lose. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think we have like New Mexico this weekend. I don't know. I'm disinterested right now. We can't win the big games. It's frustrating.
Well, at least you're winning some games. Wisconsin can't even win a game.
True. I should probably be more appreciative, right? Like I should probably be more appreciative. I think we got New Mexico. We still got Florida and Vanderbilt on the list. So yeah, I'm just hoping we beat Vanderbilt. I won't be able to go back home.
You play actually New Mexico?
I think so.
That'd be interesting.
I don't think they're bad either.
New Mexico, they got the guy that we're trying to get as far as a coach. He's
really?
Former, I think he was a lineman at Wisconsin, and now he's got New Mexico to their first bowl since like 96 or something like that.
Maybe we have a bye week this week. Yeah, we do. We're on the bye. No, yeah, we're on the bye. We got New Mexico State next week, November 15th.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's not New
Yep.
Mexico. All right. Well.
All right, dude. Check you Tuesday.
See you, man.
See you, dude.
Bye.